always remember you are one of a kindness.
Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of changemakers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Agency for Change podcast. This is Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist of KidGlov. So I'm going to get us started today with a question. I'd like you to think about, what is your definition of kindness? You may have something in mind, but I'd love you to give a listen to today's episode because we are talking to someone who is all about kindness. She has a great definition and a great program to add more kindness to your life. Our guest is Lindsay Andreotti. She is the founder and chief experience officer of Imaginal Ventures. She's also the kindness kahuna of Imagine Kindness, and she may soon be known as the fairy godmother of kindness. So I hope you enjoy. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm really happy to be here. It's going to be a great day.
It is going to be a great day. And Lindsay, I can already hear the happiness and the cheerfulness in your voice. So I can't wait to have this conversation. Would you start us off by just telling us more about Imaginal Ventures?
Absolutely. So Imaginal Ventures to me is bringing together the power of the imagination among groups of people. And the way that that worked in my career of about 35 years is I coached and mentored a lot of entrepreneurs. And typically speaking, someone with an entrepreneurial mindset is also an imaginal, typically.
Absolutely.
Not
Yes.
always, but there's something there.
Yeah.
So what Imaginal Ventures became about for me is I wanted to make it into a not-for-profit so that I could really serve imaginals who are trying to bring about the world that we all know is possible, but haven't yet necessarily seen it in reality. And that's going to take the power of group imagination. We have to think it up and do things and intentionalize it into reality. So that's what Imaginal Ventures is all about.
I love it. Lindsay, I have to tell you, the first time I saw the name, I was like, this is really interesting. That name does exactly what naming should do, in that it made me want to learn more. And now that you're referring to the group of people that you serve as the Imaginals, it just makes me want to be an Imaginal as well. So I love this. I love this very much. So I know that a good part of your work has to do with the concept of kindness. Tell me how kindness relates to Imaginal Ventures.
That's a great question. And I get asked it a lot, but I'll tell you, sometimes going direct drive to people and asking them, are you an Imaginal? What kind of world do you imagine living in? They kind of look at you like, what's
too
wrong
much
with her? And she's just weird. Okay. So, and I've gotten that many times, and sometimes I still do it, and it's okay with me.
Yeah.
But what I did discover along the trail of sharing the story of Imaginal Ventures and what is an Imaginal, the underpinning to the culture of this world that I think we're all wanting to be part of is a world with more kindness, where people are actually being better to themselves and to one another. And that's a tall order, so I get it. This is not for the faint of heart, and it's not for someone who doesn't want to do their own interpersonal work, for sure. But what I discovered was that I was beginning to imagine a world where kindness was the way. So I even have a t-shirt that says kindness is the way.
I love it.
I know we're going to talk more about that, later in the podcast, but the culture of the imaginal world is one of kindness. And I'll explain all of that. I know you have millions of questions for me.
I do.
I know. So everyone looks at me like, oh, I get this.
Right. Well, I think too, right now, the country, and I know we have listeners outside of the States, but I think generally the world, the humans of the world are hungry for kindness. And
We
regardless
are.
of what you call it, belonging, culture, DE&I, uh, all of that really comes down to kindness and respecting your fellow human, I think. But
Yeah.
I'd love for you to define it
Yeah.
because you're an expert in this field. It's your work. How do you define kindness?
Super. I'm going to give you two things. One is a very short definition that applies to all humanity.
Yeah.
Kindness is love in action.
Ooh.
So, okay, that is as simple as it gets. However, practicing that is what has been forgotten. It's a bit of an art. And I created 4 pillars of kindness with the intention of helping people really parse out the different kinds of actions they could be taking that are kindness. So I'll give you those 4 pillars and then we can
Perfect.
discuss each one. So the first one is to be kind to yourself. The second one is be kind to others. That's kind of an obvious one that everybody seems to know how to do.
Yep.
Next two are a little bit harder, and they're the ones that are most forgotten. The third one is to observe and acknowledge kindness between others. And that one I'll explain in depth when we get to that. And then the last one, probably the most difficult, and the one that I get the most stares and the rolled eyes, is learning or remembering how to receive kindness.
Oh,
We do not do it well.
wow. Right.
Yeah.
I just that hits me, Lindsay. That hits me right in the heart. Like
Mm,
I know that's hard. All right, because I believe in spaced repetition, right, as a powerful tool for learning. Here's what I heard
okay.
you say, because I think
Okay,
this
good.
is really important. I
Yep.
heard you say your definition of kindness, and I love this, is love in action. And the
Mhm.
4 pillars are self. And I do think it's hard to be kind to yourself. That voice in your head, the voice in
Mhm.
my head can be vicious. And we've really worked on becoming friends over the last recent years, right? Be kind to
Yep.
others. That's what we all learned in kindergarten.
There you go.
Observe and acknowledge kindness. I love that. Catch someone doing it right,
Yes.
right?
Especially children. I'll
Oh,
just put that out. Yes.
and then
Mhm.
receiving kindness. I mean, how many times I bet every single listener could say they have received a compliment and they have immediately said, oh, that's nothing. That's like, oh, yeah, it's not really that great. And what
Yep.
you're doing then, you're not only hurting yourself, you're
Mhm.
taking that person who stood up to observe and acknowledge kindness to give you kindness and you're
Yes.
telling them, oh, don't do that because people don't
Correct.
like that, right? Whether
Yes.
they acknowledge it or not.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
You got it. Those are the
Oh,
4 pillars.
all right. This
And
is good stuff. Good
okay,
stuff.
good.
I feel like I'm turning this podcast into a coaching session, Lindsay. So if you need to send me a bill later, just you know my address.
I love doing this. It's so truly, it is my absolute pleasure to help people fully get and understand what kindness is. So thank you for inviting me and asking me this because it honestly is, it's a practice.
Yeah.
You don't, we don't get to do this as often as we think we do. And I practice it every day, every hour, every
Mm,
minute sometimes, where it's like, oh, this is a kindness to self minute. This is a
yeah.
kindness to others minute. This is a kindness to receive minute.
Wow.
Okay. So
S-
yeah,
So
it's pretty
good.
cool.
All right, so let's get real because I hit on this just a minute ago, but I want to hear
Okay.
like what you've been working with. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, why is kindness more important than ever right now in the world and in the workplace?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question because I get asked this a lot and I really do enjoy bringing a culture of kindness to companies because let's put it into this context. Businesses, companies, organizations are living organisms. They
Yeah.
have a life of their own. And if you think about the personality of an individual, you could say about Lindsay Andreotti, oh, she's a kind person, right? What's the word that you would use for the personality of your organization? And man, do I hear words like toxic, mean, misunderstanding. And I just go, wait, what? I can't.
Ugh.
Who would want to hang out with that, right?
Yeah. Lindsay,
So,
I heard a culture of a firm recently, not my firm, but a
yeah,
firm recently described as viciously competitive. And I'm like,
yeah, there you go.
wow, how draining must that be?
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And for human beings, we're not really designed to be in that environment. That is what creates oxidative stress.
Mm,
It creates dis-ease called disease. It creates so many things, and we know it, but we still abide.
yeah.
Okay. We don't necessarily have an alternative, perhaps. So part of the process of adopting a culture of kindness also means that it's adopting a way inside an organization that brings about more health and well-being, more kindness, more more opportunities to see something that is the third space, the new innovation, the
Mm,
new opportunity. When you are viciously competitive, the pain and anguish that you go home with every single night does not allow you to be creative. It does
right.
not allow you to wake up in the morning and feel good. You feel like, oh no, if I don't, then fill in the blank. So, why it's so important for companies today to adopt a culture of kindness if they want to grow, if they want to retain people,
Mm,
if they'd like to attract people that
mm,
actually want to be human and not robotic,
yeah.
then kindness is the way. And it's the kind of culture that has to be cultivated. It's not just, oh, yeah, everybody be nice.
Yeah.
Nice is not kind, but
Yeah.
creating stress in self and others is also not kind. So we
Right.
have to find an equal balance and a way to look at it through the lens of kindness. So,
Yeah. Lindsay,
mhm.
do you ever run into people like me that feel like they have to unlearn bad habits? Because
Sure.
I've been in the business world for over 30 years, and I
Yep.
feel like when I came in, I was one of the few women in the company that I started in. And I felt like I was advised, and I felt like I had to learn to be tough
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
smart
Mhm.
and, protect myself and, compete and leverage. And all of those things are very different from kindness, right? And I think it's almost taken me a whole 30 years to say, wow, if I want to be happy,
Mhm.
personally, which I don't know, you could say that's a selfish goal or not, but if I want to be happy
I think it's
and if
good.
I want to have a culture where people are happy,
Mhm.
that kind of a mindset has to go. It
Yeah.
has to go.
It does. It's a fear-based mindset, right? It's an
Yeah.
I'm not good enough mindset. It's an I'm not worthy. I don't belong here. That. And I grew up similar to you.
Hmm.
That was how we were trained. And in fact, I remember that way back machine in the late 80s. I think I
Oh,
did an
yeah.
entire seminar on resilience,
Oh,
like
yes,
how to be
resilience.
resilient. And I'm thinking to myself, this is nuts. Like, what are we doing?
What are we
So
doing?
but that was the way, that was how we were
Yeah.
trained. And we've lived for a very long time in a culture of fear and unworthiness.
Yeah.
And success looks a certain way. It doesn't mean that you can't be successful in other ways. So it was really complicated. And, that's not to say I have two children now that are 28 and 26, and they're coming up in a whole new world of
Oh, yeah.
cultures
Different.
in very
Yeah.
different. And I respect that. It's okay. The one thing that cannot continue to be perpetuated, though, is this fear and trying to make people be what they're not.
Yeah.
I loved the Gallup Strengths Finder for so long because it really was indicating, hey, build up your strengths. Take what
Right.
you are and make
Right.
that even louder and cooler. I mean, Superman did not have to be Batman, and Batman was not Wonder Woman. They had strengths, and when they came together, it formed something powerful. I've always said that's the real key to this future culture is its acknowledgement
Yeah.
of someone else's superpower, right?
Yeah. I love that.
I think what we're pointing to here with a culture of kindness is really the techniques, the methodologies for how do you help someone know that you are triggered by their behavior
Mm.
without making them bad and wrong, and growing through a conversation so that kindness can permeate the circumstance. And that is the real key to this whole thing. It's
Wow, what a question. Talk about a $64,000 question, right? Like, how do you let someone know that you're triggered without triggering them yourself? Because
uh,
instantly, if someone triggers you, I mean, the natural thing that
right.
rises up, and I
Yeah.
literally feel it. I feel it rising up in my chest. And it's like this
Mm.
instinct to you've triggered me, so now I must trigger you. And then you get to a point where neither of us can hear each other. Our
Nope.
words are just zinging past like
Yep.
arrows, right? And
Right.
we're just in a word fight. Yeah, but
Yep.
no,
That's
no
exactly right.
nothing's getting done. Wow.
Nothing's getting done. And so, practice with your closest friends, your family, is a really good way to help develop the skill and the strength, the superpower of
Yeah,
being kind. I I can give you a great example. I
I'd
have a
love it.
very good friend who just yesterday literally triggered me to no end because she tapped into something that was really relevant to my relationship with my mother.
Oh,
And I've known about this for a super long time, but it was fascinating to watch because it happened like that,
yeah,
literally. And I
yeah,
went, "Wait, what?"
yeah.
I had to pause, take a deep breath. I call it the stop, drop, and roll method. You know,
Ooh, we can
take a deep
remember
breath.
that. Yeah. Okay. Take a deep
Exactly.
breath. I'm
This,
taking notes, Lindsay. Take
okay,
a
this
deep
is
breath. Deep
take
breath.
a
All
deep
right.
breath. Stop, drop, and roll. Just,
Okay.
give yourself a second or two and then go, wow, to yourself. Good catch.
Yeah.
Good catch. This is the acknowledgement of self. Whoa, because I could have very easily, in another lifetime, 10 years ago or more, I
Yeah.
could have very
Yeah.
easily just triggered her right back and said, "What are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about?" Blah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the stop, drop, and roll moment, you have a choice point, which is where's the opportunity to love this person, but to also express what is happening for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the art of this whole kindness culture because no one is actually doing anything to you.
Mm.
They're doing it for you.
Yeah.
And when we recognize that and go, wow, that's pretty cool, I was able to sit with my friend a few hours later after we got done with our project. And I basically just sat with her and said, I got to tell you, what you did absolutely took me back to age 7. And I
Ooh.
was sitting on a curb at impasse with my mother, and I wanted to run away from home.
Oh,
Right?
Lindsay.
That's
I
my
can
7 year
picture
old.
you,
Yeah.
little Lindsay, getting ready to run away from
I
home.
was getting ready. I had my bag packed. I was sitting on the curb and we were at impasse. And what was fascinating is all of that work that it took for me was less than 5 minutes to get to
Yeah.
that place. It's like, this is not my friend. I am reacting to a circumstance where I felt underappreciated, underloved, and totally controlled. Like somebody wanted to control every dynamic of my life, and I was way too independent for that. Okay. So
Yeah.
I explained all of that to her, and all she did was cry and give me a hug.
Oh.
Now, I could have unleashed on her and said, "Why are you doing this? And this is ridiculous," or whatever. And if you even hear the sound of my voice,
Yeah.
that's what happens most every day in families, in organizations. People just unleash their fear that literally is coming from usually 7-year-old so and so.
Yeah, yeah. Lindsay, I want to acknowledge, I think you just dropped a bit of life-changing coaching and advice right there. That stop, drop, and roll. What I even wrote down is take a deep breath. Once again, I'm treating this like a coaching session, Lindsay,
Okay.
because
I
it
love it.
is too good to be on the phone with you and not be taking notes. But I heard you say take a deep breath, say wow, and acknowledge that you just saw this happening. Think
Mhm.
about how you can love the other person. And then when you're calm and in the right frame of mind, have that
Yes.
moment of reflection with them so they can understand. Because if you had reacted, your friend would have been totally blindsided because she has no idea that 7 year
No
old
idea.
Lindsay was ready to run away from home at an
Correct.
impasse with her mother. Oh,
Right.
that's amazing. So I wonder if that's a cue, Lindsay. I just want to ask you,
Yeah, please.
how did you get into this work? How did you decide I
Mhm.
want to really focus on this area of work and life?
It's kind of funny. It found me, and I think a
Mm,
lot of people would say that your true purpose in life finds you as opposed to you finding it. And
yeah.
I love that notion, and I can tell you it absolutely is 100% true for me. What ended up happening, I moved from Seattle, Washington to Daytona Beach, Florida in about 2018. And
Can you get any farther point to point in
yes,
the United States of
I figured out
America?
from Fairbanks, Alaska to
Oh,
Key West would have been further, but not,
okay.
it's
Wow.
still pretty far
It's a
in the
long ways
contiguous
away.
US.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I discovered when I moved is that my heart was really in a sunny climate. And
Mm,
I had lived for 52 years, plus or minus, in the Northwest where it was cold, gray, and cloudy from my perspective almost all the time. It
yeah.
was, the months of July, August, and September were beautiful, and everything else was a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
So I remember, telling my kids, hey, one of them was graduating college, the other one was a sophomore in college. And I said, well, kids, I'm really glad you're finding your path. I'm moving out.
Wow.
And they both were absolute, genuine supporters of that entire experience. The person who was least excited about it was my mom.
Yeah.
And in 2020, during COVID, it was actually, true fact, March of 2020 was when it all started to really unfold. And I was on a cruise ship with my mom, her best friend, two of my friends. We were all together, and COVID broke out in San Francisco. We were in LA on a cruise ship.
I remember the stories of the cruise ships during the people didn't
Oh
know what
my
to
goodness.
do.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so all of us were we said a lot of prayers that day that we were getting off the ship. And literally, we were able to just walk off, get on an airplane, and each of us go to our respective homes. It was amazing because we knew a lot of other people, same week, same days,
Yeah.
same everything, who were not getting off those ships. And we
Right.
were just very fortunate. So, but in that time frame between 2020, my mom went back to Seattle, I went to Florida, and 2021, end of 2021, two things happened. One, I got COVID
Mm.
and was in the hospital for 13 days,
Oh my.
and my mother would not come visit. She was absolutely terrified,
Yeah.
so scared. And I kept telling her, you're okay. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. Don't you worry. I think I'm a test case dummy. Don't worry about it. And I
Yeah.
really had a lot of faith that everything was working out. Well, my mom did not. And that kind of caught me off guard. I felt like I didn't really know that person, my
Yeah.
mother, as well as
Yeah.
I thought I would. The second thing that happened is in July of 21, she had a recurrence of breast cancer. It
Mm.
had been dormant or in remission for 15 years. And she called me to tell me what was happening. And I said, I'm coming. And she was like, no, don't come. Don't bring COVID. And I said, oh, no, that's it. I'm coming. That's the end of the story. I will be there. And so I flew to Seattle. And what I learned in that time was that my mom had a really, really difficult time being kind to herself, and she
Yeah.
had a really difficult time receiving kindness. And I didn't understand all of that in the same way that I'm speaking into it now, but it is what was the impetus behind my purpose. It's like, oh my gosh, how in the
Wow.
world can I help people understand the power of those two things and its impact on their health and well-being? My
Right.
mother passed away in January of 22. And part of it was because she couldn't really be kind to herself. She was the
Yeah.
most generous human on this planet Earth to other people. She'd give you the shirt off of her back, but it was not easy for her to be good to herself. It was just not. And I went, whoa, okay, lesson learned. And what do I need to do about this? And so I just went on my
Hmm.
own journey of how do I discuss this? What does it mean to me? And my dad and I took a road trip across country from Seattle to Florida with a bunch of kindness coins, and we acknowledged kindness everywhere we went. We were looking for
Wow.
kindness in the US all during COVID.
Wow. Lindsay, while that had to have been so hard, that experience with your mother had to have been so hard, and realizing that that's the first and the fourth pillar of your model, right?
Yep.
Self-kindness and then being able to receive
Receive.
kindness.
Yep.
I've got to believe that there was a reason for that. And she was your teacher. She was your
100%.
teacher to say, Lindsay, this is important. It's important for you to learn. It's important for you to share with your dad, but it's important for you now to have the ripple effect with all of the things that you're doing with Imaginal Ventures. And that story is really, really touching. So I'd love to take this a step further and talk about maybe some examples or a project or an initiative that you've worked on that embodies these values of kindness.
Oh my gosh, so many. Let's see. I think one that is particularly top of mind because it literally just happened this month, which is February of 2025 for anyone who's listening later.
Yeah.
What we did was we created in our neighborhood of about 6,000 people, we created a golf cart food drive poker run. So
Whoa.
I know it was an absolute blast. What happened was it just kind of came out that it would be very helpful if our food bank received more food
Yeah.
and household items because after Christmas, it's kind of funny, but people forget that there's still a lot of people who
Yeah.
have
It
access.
doesn't just stop
It
because
doesn't just
Christmas is
stop because
over. Yeah.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we
Yeah.
took it upon ourselves to spread the love for February. And we decided we were going to do this thing. And so we garnered about 100 golf carts, people on them, and everybody brought a can of food to each stop. And for that can of food, they were given a playing card. And they stopped at 6 stops. They ended up with 6 cards. We had an end party where everyone came together, and the best hand won a cool prize, and the worst hand won a cool prize. And more importantly than all of that, we had support from another club called the Flamingals, who showed up in their flamingo costumes and supported the whole thing. And we had another club, which is our cornhole club. They showed up, brought 10 cornhole boards, and everybody was playing cornhole and supporting this whole idea that our neighborhood could do a food drive with golf carts. And
Beautiful.
it was incredible. And it's the first year we've ever done that here. And it's an example of how you don't have to raise money. You
Right.
just have to do the thing, be kind.
Yeah.
And so every single person involved, these are our people. They're the ones who see that the world is a better place if we can acknowledge each other, do stuff for each other, acknowledge ourselves, and recognize that we can serve others at the same time. It was so
Mm.
cool. That's
And
just
you
fun.
Yeah, and you talk about the ripple effect of all of that, right? Like, I've got to believe that A, there were just waves of fun and kindness happening, but also that people were talking about it. And there's a
100%.
lot of value in that. So more people became aware, A, of kindness and fun. More people became aware of the needs of the local food bank. So that's
That's the
great.
key. I mean, that's really it. We did a festival, the Food, Craft, and Kindness Festival for our entire county. There were about 7,000 people that came. And all
Nice.
we did as a kindness crew was bring the kindness. So we showed up at the festival. Yes, we had a booth, but our whole goal was to run around to all the other booths and the food trucks and all the people and thank them for being there and show them some love. We brought them candies. We brought them kindness coins. We showed them that we just really appreciated them. And without exception, at the end, their review numbers were over the moon. They're like, if you do this again, we're coming. It just felt
Absolutely.
so good. So there's this part of bring it, bring it to a place and watch what happens. And you'd be
Yeah.
amazed. I mean, anyone can do this, anyone can be kind in a most random condition. I like to think of myself as the fairy godmother of kindness.
I
And
love that so much, Lindsay. That is such a I want my title to be the fairy. I got some work to do before I earn it, but wow, the fairy godmother of kindness. That is so fantastic.
it's so appropriate because when you think about what a fairy godmother does is she sees you and
Yeah.
acknowledges the you,
Mm.
right? The you that you are. And that acknowledgement is you are very special and you have a way of being. So why not see yourself the way I see you, or that
Mm,
someone else can see you, and show people how to be more kind. So,
that's so beautiful. So, Lindsay, what's next? What's on the horizon for you? I know you have
oh
lots of
gosh,
ideas. Yeah.
so many things. Well, one of them is to try to promote the Fairy Godmother of Kindness programs to a couple of companies.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention it here in the podcast,
Yep.
but they'll know who they are by the time, the end of
That's
2025,
that's
because
great.
there's a way in which this process could be shared with millions of people. And it's not just about me. I will teach other fairy godmothers, just it
Yeah.
really easily. It's so easily spreadable, but you do have to have a certain approach to
Right.
how, to this lifestyle of acknowledgement of kindness and being who you are. So it's authentically kind, right?
That is
Uh,
so good. Lindsay, I
well,
was traveling last week and I think a great place for the fairy godmother of kindness would be in an airport, right? Why do airports bring out the worst of the bad behavior?
I could start, you could get me started. A lot of it was when the TSA was implemented, and you could no
Mm,
longer,
yeah.
it was no longer just simple to
Yeah.
go to your gate and to get on a plane. It
Right.
is so laborious
You
now.
have to
And
be roughed up and take off your shoes and put your things in the
yeah,
baskets and stand in line and process.
I
Yeah.
mean, you spend hours packing that suitcase, and they tell you to
Yeah.
open it up or whatever. You forgot your
Yeah.
laptop. I mean, it's silly. Anyway,
Yeah.
there is a need for our TSA to adopt some of the kindness
Hmm.
modality,
Hmm.
because it already is, it's slow and cumbersome and it's
Yeah.
stressful.
Yes.
You can't pass this gate to get to your plane, and you already feel stressed. Like, do I have enough time? Am I going to have enough time? Will I have?
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah. Yeah. So
Fantastic. All right.
you're right.
Well,
I'm on it. Airports is good. I'll go.
okay.
I'm,
All
I'm going to
right.
bring the kindness wherever it's needed.
I love that so much. So, Lindsay, last thing. So, you already have given us some great advice, and I'm taking away some great lessons here. But w- what simple advice would you give people who are looking to add more kindness into their days, their lives, their organizations, and their communities?
Yeah, start with yourself first, for
Mm,
sure. Just start right there. It's kind of like we were talking about airports and airplanes. Always put your oxygen mask on yourself first
yeah.
before trying to help others.
Yeah.
A person who is easily triggered by the lack of kindness or the annoyance of others is one who needs a little bit more oxygen in their tank.
Yeah.
And I notice it in myself, through driving. The one way I can still get triggered is by unattentive drivers
Oh,
who
yeah.
literally are
That
taking other
triggers a
people.
lot of us, right? That can
I
trigger
think
a
it
lot of us.
does.
And then you're alone in your car. So then there's yelling and curse words. It's like
Yep.
that's not good
Yeah.
for
It's
anybody.
like, how in the world did you think that was a good idea? But
Uh-huh.
the cool thing about that, when it does occur, is that it's just a reminder to me, oh, I may need to take a longer hot tub this evening. This this day
Yeah.
might just have been, I need to refill a little bit more than I thought.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you find yourself on the leading edge of wanting more kindness, look in the mirror and say, what can I do for myself? Because you will attract it and you will be able to give it. So that's the
Wow.
step. Yeah.
What beautiful advice. All right, Lindsay, for the people who are listening who want to find out more about
Yeah.
what you're doing, your programs, maybe as you roll out the fairy godmother of kindness, how can they
Okay.
find more?
The best way to find me, we have two websites because it became such that people wanted slightly different things, but they were
Mm,
coming at it two different angles. So if you're interested as an entrepreneur or a business owner of creating a culture of kindness, you might want to go see imaginalventures.org.
okay.
If what you're wanting is to really be part of a kindness crew, receive more love and infusion of people who are doing kindness around the world, whatever, you might go to imaginekindness.org, which also has a Facebook group that is Imagine Kindness. So you can find us in both places. And I'm happy to support anybody's endeavors who are trying to build a world that is just good for humanity. I'm in. How do we do it?
Fantastic. I love it so much. Lindsay, we'll have links to both of those places in the show notes on the KidGlov website too. So for anybody who didn't get that, that's how you can find Lindsay and this great work that she's doing. And Lindsay, I can't wait to ask you the next question because this
Ooh.
has been such an inspiring conversation. And I love to collect inspirational quotes. I'd
Ooh.
love a Lindsay Andreotti original. What do you have for us?
Well, my favorite thing to tell people is always remember you are one of a kindness.
Oh, I love that so much. You are one of a kindness.
Yep. We
So
are all
good.
in this soup and you're one of a kindness. So you being you is the best way to make the world what it's intended to be.
Oh, Lindsay, that is so beautiful. As we bring this to a close, and this has been such a fun conversation, I'd love to just cap it off with your thinking on what is the most important thing you want people to remember about the work that you're doing.
It's one person at a time, one moment at a time. I simply am I'll call it a beacon for the word of kindness because I think it is what I am. I really am one of a kindness. And I truly see myself as a part of everything and everyone. So what I want you to just remember is that you can be more kind. And it starts with being kind to yourself. And if that sounds like a foreign subject, like, oh my gosh, never even thought of that, no problem. Come and join our kindness crew. We will help because that's what this group does. We're reminders all the time of how to be nicer and kinder to ourselves so we can distribute kindness as a frequency around the globe. So,
That is
yeah,
so beautiful. Having
thank you.
had the chance to get to know you a little bit, just through a couple of online conversations, Lindsay, I'm going to agree. You are a beacon. You radiate joy. You radiate kindness. I feel like I'm a better person after I talk to you. So I'm going to
Oh, thank you,
say,
Lynn.
absolutely. I'm going to say, Lindsay, I fully believe the world needs more people like you, more initiatives like the ones that you have going. And I just want to thank you for taking time to spread a little kindness to our listeners today.
It is my true pleasure, indeed. So thank you, Lynn. And I really appreciate you being one of a kindness. You are
Oh,
making a powerful impact just by doing this podcast, let alone all the other KidGlov activities. So thank you for what you are and how you bring it to the world, too.
thanks, Lindsay. I really and truly appreciate that.
My pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KIDGLOV.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.